Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and my guest today is Amber from Divine Debris. Hi, Amber.
Hi there.
Welcome to my channel. Um, so I was introduced to you by Jacob, who also was a guest of my channel, and basically, like he's a crocheter and he's now turned knitter. And actually, since his interview, I asked him why he stopped designing, and now he got into designing. So I'm very happy that that interview pushed him back into designing. Um, why crochet? Like, how did crochet start? Why are you so in love with crochet?
Honestly, crochet was an absolute kind of an accident for me. Like my mother taught me to crochet when I was a little kid. I was like 7 years old, and I stuck with it for maybe a week. Just like a little kid, I was trying, I played with the yarn, it was hard, and so I just gave up. But in my 20s, I was working at a craft store,
Mhm.
and I had to walk past the aisles of yarn. Like I'd walk through, and the little yarn, it was so soft, it was so pretty. I just wanted to touch it and play with it. And I remembered that I had like this tiny little foundation of information on crochet. Like I understood how to hold the yarn and how to hold a hook, but it had been 15 years since I did it, so I couldn't remember. But luckily YouTube was around by then, so I was able to pull up a video, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I just kind of fell into it, and after that it just snowballed. It just got more. I started buying the yarn, I started buying more yarn, and I started like making things, and it just got bigger.
Well, do you think it's almost like a muscle memory? Like, did it feel natural for you to come back to it after so many years?
Oh, absolutely. It was really surprising to me because, like, just like I said, it'd been so long. I was a kid. I think I wanted to make a blanket, and
Right.
obviously that wouldn't work out for a 7 year old for most 7 year olds anyway. But I was able to pick it back up really quickly. It was really cool to me because like I said, I could remember how to hold the hook, which I felt like was like a really good thing to remember, like the
Right.
proper comfort way to hold the hook. And yeah, it was just so natural and so easy to fall back into.
I mean, for me, it's the same thing because I learned how to knit when I was 7 or 8. My grandma taught me like one summer for like a couple of weeks, and then I never knitted. And then I came to it like 4.5 years ago, but it was totally like I knew what I was doing. Like it took me like a second on YouTube when
Mhm.
I was knitting. So it's like, I wonder if it's really once you hold the hook or the needles, it's like stays with you for life.
Yeah, yeah, like same thing with the pulled up a YouTube video and had that like top down so you could see somebody else working, so you could see how they were moving their hands, and then just like clicked, like a light bulb turned on. I was like, oh, I can do that. I totally did.
So what was like the first few projects that you worked on when you started again?
Oh, I actually dabbled in earring making for a while. And I made with like teeny tiny little steel hooks and some floss thread. I would make earrings, and then I that was a ton of fun. But again, all the pretty yarn wanted to be played with, and so I started with just like real simple, easy one skein project hats or scarves, and just kind of fun, really simple um, repeats and stuff like that. And so yeah, it wasn't super challenging, but it was absolutely satisfying. Knock out a hat and then be able to wear it to work the next day was super cool.
So how do you go from like dabbling in your first few hats to becoming a designer? Like when did that switch happen?
Was probably like a year or so later. I just was just having so much fun. I liked making things. And I've got a history with art. Like when I was a little kid, I was really creative. I would draw the little cartoons from TV. And then all through school and up through college, I focused on art. And so I had that desire to make something. I had that creative push where I was like, gotta do something, gotta make something where there was nothing before.
Right.
And it just kind of rolled right into crochet once I started getting back into the habit, and I was learning new stitches and following patterns from other people. I kind of wanted to go off book. I wanted to make something myself, and that's where the earrings really played out, because it I was able to just like make these tiny little things that would take no time, but I could just like make my own design and see what worked. And after a while, I started doing it with the hats too, and then the scarves, and
So
how it
like,
goes.
how do you go from the scarf and the hat into like designing sweaters? Like, was that a process? Did it take some time, or did you just jump right in?
Oh, for me, it took forever. I was afraid of making sweaters. I started designing like back in 2013. Yeah, okay. Sometimes I forget that was just like 10 years ago. Um, but in about 2013, but I didn't design my first sweater until like 2018. Like it took years because I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And because it was such a big project, I really love the process of making something and being able to like take it with you and wear sweaters or blankets or something larger. It feels harder to, go somewhere and play with it and do things. And yeah, I was just really intimidated by the process of making a garment because, grading is a lot of work and, you know, trying to make sure the sizes fit and making sure the pattern makes sense. It just seemed like so much more work than just making a hat.
Right. So like when you did design your first sweater, but did that feel like a huge achievement?
Oh, it was so cool. Like it was the coolest thing. I remember showing off on social media, and I actually still like it just a few years ago, so I still have my Instagram and stuff, so you can actually see. And I was just like, holy cow, look at this thing I made. Like, I'm gonna wear this outside, and it's so cool. I mean, it's the same as you anytime you wear something you make, but it's just like a sweater though. Like I felt like real designer at that point. I felt cool. I loved it. It was the coolest.
Well, I noticed that you have a ton of free patterns. How do you decide what you're gonna offer as a free pattern and what you're gonna offer as a paid pattern? And why do you offer so many free patterns?
I started out doing my blog with just free patterns initially. I was just writing them up and having fun with it. And I wasn't really focused on any kind of monetary aspect there. And I continued with it. I was trying, I was using the free patterns to help generate interest in the paid patterns. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I do enjoy the aspect of making the blog posts and having the patterns there available because those do get made more often than the paid patterns. So when people post pictures, it's really fun and cool to see like what they've made from something I designed. As far as like designing or deciding which ones become paid versus free, I usually look at the complexity of the design. Like if it's a very involved process for me to create, for my testers, the pattern itself is a little bit harder, I will offer that as a paid pattern. Whereas if it's a little bit simpler, doesn't require as much work for me to create the pattern, then it usually is a free pattern. So it just kind of depends though. Sometimes I don't know, I've made very complex designs for my blog and I'm like, this should have been a paid pattern. But at that point, it's over and done with, and hopefully people like the pattern either way.
Right. Well, do you treat it as a business at this point, or is it more of a hobby for you?
It's definitely a business for me at this point. The last couple of years have actually been pretty good for me. Money wise, I think with everybody staying home a lot last year, there was a lot more interest in things that you can do from home. And for me, that saw an increase in my traffic to my blog as well as purchases for patterns. And that was really cool. I actually saw like it felt more real and than sometimes in the past where I just making a little bit of money. It was just on the side and stuff. And then I did lose my job last year. And so my retail job. And so now I'm doing this full time. And that's, yeah, definitely more of a job than just a hobby at this point.
Right. Well, but do you think like for somebody who is trying to get, there's like so many people who like thinking about getting into designing, right? Like a lot of people will, when they need other people's patterns, they'll modify that. That's how like the designers usually start. They'll like think, well, this is beautiful, I'm gonna make that, but like my shoulders are wider or something, my arms are longer, so like I'll make it longer and I'll make it wider. And that's how like they start with the designing, and then they thinking about like, should I get into design or not? Looking back, right, you're doing it 10 years. Are there any regrets, like things you would have done differently? Like, do you have advice for somebody who is thinking about getting into it?
I look back and I see the community that is around now, that you see now. Like I see it on Instagram, Facebook, Ravelry, like everywhere you have people, there is a massive community now. YouTube also was not as big
Right.
10 plus years ago than it is now. And the resources that are available are infinite. It's so cool. I got into designing and I did not understand a lot of the aspects of it. Like, I'm glad that I waited to make garments because I did not understand grading for years. I swear. I got it, like it took a while, and then eventually it did like click in my head how that stuff works, but it was hard for a while to wrap my head around it. Whereas now I think there is a ton for people to learn and to be able to, like, information from other people who are writing blog posts, who are creating books, like explaining the process, that it is easier. The entry into it is easier. And I love that for people, because I felt like I struggled not knowing what I was doing for a long time, not understanding how to make a pattern, to write a clear pattern, to make sure that my testers are doing a good job on it, and just all sorts of parts of the process that I didn't understand, because the community, while it was there, it wasn't as accessible at some points as it is now.
Right.
And so yeah, I look back and I see some missteps. I see opportunities that I should have jumped on. I look at like social media alone, I struggled with. I had an Instagram account and I didn't even use it until like 4 years ago. Like it was just kind of pictures of my pet snake and food, and then some crochet here and there. And I was underutilizing things like that. I was just posting the pattern and hoping people would find it. And that's, yeah, big missed opportunity.
Right. So how do you approach marketing on social media now? Like, do you have it planned? Do you have it like, okay, this month I'm gonna talk about this pattern and this pattern, and taking pictures, posting, replying? How do you do that? How do you plan all of that?
Not well. I plan my patterns and I have my releases and I try to have all of that organized. With social media, I feel like it's always changing and I can never keep up with what the algorithm wants, of what's gonna look good, what's gonna actually like get engagement. And so I try to stick to like a basic formula as far as around pattern releases, so that I can, show off what's new, show off what's new, show off what's new, and then try to pull some stuff from the past to, keep people interested in things I've made before. But, I find social media very perplexing still, and it's always changing and frustrating. And so just try to do my best is my plan for
Well,
marketing like that.
do you ever like post something and expect it to be like going viral and nothing happens?
Every day, I swear. Instagram feels like that lately. I wish I could understand what it wants from me. I don't get it. Same thing. Like honestly, they all kind of feel hard and frustrating. Any kind of social media, you can never tell what's going to do well. I've had a picture that I put a lot of thought into, and the caption was like really interesting to me, at least, and had nothing on it. And then I'll just take like a quick snap of something lying on the floor and be like, hey, this is a new thing I'm working on. Boom, people love it. Tons of comments, lots of saves, all sorts of stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what you people want from me now.
Do you have people that became your good friends, people that you consider like your fan base, like support group from Instagram or from Facebook, that you like never met in real life but feel like they're your people?
I do. I've seen a lot of the same names and a lot of like the same, or not the same comments, but like the same, like a continuous comments from the same people for years.
Right.
It's so cool how you can, like, somebody can follow you through. I've actually had people post a picture of their kid with something they made, and then a couple of years later, the kid is now much bigger, and they've also posted a photo, and it's just really neat because you do get that engagement. You get to see these, ride or die friends that comment on all the things, and they share your posts, and they're excited about new projects and stuff like that. And it is actually really cool.
Right.
They,
How about you, like real life friends, real life family, like people around you? Are they supportive of what you do? Do they think like crocheting something grandmas do and you should like get the real job or something like that?
No, they're actually absolutely encouraging. My husband is a huge supporter. He has, I always like to be really upfront about this. My husband has a very good job that pays for things. So it makes like the instability of being a crochet designer full time a little bit easier to handle. And so, in both in a monetary aspect as well as like feedback and even taking the photos when I pose in my sweaters and stuff, my husband is massively behind me. Like, he's just 110% supportive.
Right.
And so that's great. And my mother, who taught me to crochet as a kid, thinks it's so cool that I do what I do and all the stuff that I've made. And, I'll show her my patterns like on Lion Brand's website or something, or if I get interviewed for a magazine. That's happened, once or twice. So that's really cool. And so I'll tell her about that. And she thinks it's so neat that I'm doing something so creative and so outside the box that of like a traditional job. So yeah, my family's great about it. My in-laws are a little bit confused, but outside of that, everybody else is good.
Does your mom take complete credit for your success because she was the one who taught you how to crochet?
No, actually, she has not crocheted herself. I think she started a blanket a couple of years ago, and I think it's still sitting in her closet. So she's like, she is amazed by how much I've grown from what she taught me,
Right.
because she herself is still very much at that level. And so she thinks it's so cool that, we had that little bit of teaching, and then I just went with it, just all the way out in left field.
Talk about your testers. How do you pick testers? Who is your ideal tester? Were there any testing disasters? What's that process like?
Testers, more often than not, are solid. I've had a lot of success and really good luck with a lot of my testers. I've got an email list of a lot of testers that have tested for me many times in the past, solid, dependable testers. And that's the biggest thing, is dependability.
Right.
That's what I look for in a good tester, is somebody who is going to tell me if there's something off with the pattern, like if there's something not working out, like communication, very big and very important there. And then I can know that they're gonna finish the test on time and like turn in photos, and I don't have to babysit them. Like, for me, I am a very chill designer when it comes to tests. I don't require a ton of updates. Like, I don't need daily photos or anything wild like that. So I kind of let them just do their own thing. Like, hey, let me know if you need any help, or if there's something off with the pattern that doesn't make sense, if a sentence wrong, anything. Like, but otherwise, just have it, ready. Post photos if you need to, or whatever. And I just want to know that you're going to have it done. Like, that's the biggest thing, is I just need to know that I can count on a person. And yeah, that's the ideal. If they've got great feedback and they have great photos, love it too. But I just, I really want to know that you're going to finish it so that I can know that the pattern works. Like, that's my big, I just want to know the pattern works.
Do you test every single pattern?
Yeah, unless it's going to a company that's going to do all that on their own, I test the patterns.
Right. Are you ever surprised, like when people test your things, right? And they use their own yarn, their own colors. Like, are you ever surprised by their combinations, their choices?
Oh, so often. I've been doing a lot of wall hangings lately, and they're all like brightly colored, and I pick my own palette, and I enjoy like that process. And then my testers will pull out these color arrangements for the same thing, and I'm just like, whoa, mind blown. That is so beautiful. I absolutely love what you did. Like, it changes the whole vibe of the design. Same base pattern, but the colors just bring out so many different things in it. I'm just like, wow, you've actually made me like this more than I did beforehand.
Right.
I had somebody do my other Sally Skulls, the cardigan, but she did it with a black base and rainbow where the skulls were. So cute, pops beautifully. I just absolutely in love with it. And I'm just like, this is fabulous. Thank you. This looks amazing. I love it so much.
Are you ever tempted to like try their colors on your designs next time?
Low key, yes. I have absolutely like had people turn in color arrangements, and I'm like, I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna use that one next time. I like that. I like how you put these colors together. I'm going to remember that.
Right. Do you need the same thing like numerous times, or are you always designing something new and never make anything twice?
Um, Always making things new. Like, I keep kind of a similar style throughout my work, but I like to try to find ways to change it up and to make it new and different. For the most part, yeah, I don't repeat a lot of patterns. I try to create variations on, like, if I like a stitch or like skulls or something, but I do move on to the next thing pretty quickly.
Right. So I noticed that like you do some entire crocheting, which I didn't honestly like. I'm not like the only thing I can do with crochet is like the single crochet, double crochet. Like I don't know much about crochet. It's like I'm on very beginner stage with that. I did make a couple amigurumis, but like that's about it, right? I didn't even realize that there wasn't Tarsha crochet. Like, are you into those difficult techniques? Do you want your followers, your people who like need for you to learn new stuff? Like, or are you usually like trying to keep it simple?
I try to keep it simple the best I can. Personally, I don't think color work is that difficult. And that's one of the things that I like to tell people. I'm like, if you can do a single crochet or a half double crochet, you can do this color work. It's just a matter of sitting down and focusing on it and then changing colors. Like, that's all you do. You pull with your last pull through, you change with the new color, and just keep your attention even. Like, I try to tell people, because it does look like an intimidating technique and it is considered more advanced, but it's really not that hard. I feel like it's that way scary, overblown kind of concept. Like, no, you can do it. I promise. Have fun with it. If you find you don't like it, don't do it, but I swear you'll be able to do it, because it's really simple stuff. It's just you have to get used to it, because it seems like a lot, especially when you got so many different colors and you're trying to keep it all organized. It can be very overwhelming. And like, honestly, organization and making like bobbins or keeping the yarn attached to the skein as you're working across the rows is kind of a pain in the butt, but it's worth it in the end.
How do you decide like what you're gonna design next? How those ideas pop into your head? Like, is that do you have a diary of ideas, or is it like immediately you get idea, you do it?
It's a little bit of a mix of that, because I do have a list of ideas. Like, if I see something I like, I try to make a note of it. If I see something out, like a sweater concept or color combination, I'll take a photo of it. I have a whole album of, ooh, that's pretty, on my cell phone of stuff I took pictures of because I like the way it looked. Uh, I like to go with like what's seasonal as far as designing for things. I did my skulls for Halloween. I'm going to try to do some winter themed patterns and stuff like that. It really helps to set like a theme, and then that'll give me inspiration within to work, or the parameters within work for the inspiration there. Outside of that, it's a lot of seat of my pants. I just kind of go with what looks pretty. And if I get an idea for something, I'll just see if I have some yarn around and start working it up. Just try to see what works and like play around with stitches and find out, a good combination I feel comfortable with.
What's the craziest thing you ever crochet?
Ugh, that's hard. Probably a couple of the blankets that I've done, because I did a massive blanket. Was it last year? Yeah, last year I finished. It was just a scrap Afghan that I made that was rainbow from colored corner to corner. It was colors, but it was the log cabin square, and I did it in the linen stitch. And it's crazy in that I use like 6 colors each square. And so that was like 12 ends. And then I had like over 150 squares, so many ends, so much work. It took me more than a year to complete. And yeah, I don't even know where I found the energy to do that. That was a big project. And like I wanted to make it all the squares had to be different. They couldn't be the same at all. And oh, so much work.
So how long did it take you, like when you finish all the squares, to put it all together? Like, is that the project on its own to just like assemble it all?
Oh, absolutely. Like I actually started the squares and then I was like, I'm gonna do all the squares and then I'll seam it together later. And then like not even halfway through, I was over 50 squares or something. I'm like, okay, I've got to start seaming now because this is impossible. I will not complete this if I don't start at least sewing these squares together now. Like I know me, and they would have ended up in a bag or a box or something and put away. I'm like, someday I'll get to that. And so I had to be on top of it because that was so much work. And I wanted to sew them together individually, just like a little whip stitch, to be able to keep a nice alignment with the squares and keep everything pretty. And I didn't want to put borders on it. So the squares just transitioned through. And yeah, that was so much work. That was so much. Just like sewing every corner of every square. And I had so many ends. Oy, so many ends.
Do you like wish for the, like, you know how there is a tooth fairy? Do you wish there was a loose end fairy?
Oh, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that blanket still has ends on the back of it. I don't, once it was good enough to photograph, I'm pretty sure it was like, I'll just make some knots. It's okay.
How do you write the pattern? Like, do you finish the project first and then write the pattern? Do you take notes as you need, like, as you crochet? Like, what's the process of writing of a pattern?
A lot of notes. I start with a base idea of what I want to do. If I'm working on like a sweater, for instance, I'll add a little bit of information on the size, like the goals for it. And then I make my gauge swatch, get that all blocked and ready so I can see what size it's going to be. And then I will plot out for at least the sample size, the information that I want to hit. And then I just take notes as I'm working it and try to make it as easy as possible when I sit down and actually write the pattern, because there have been times where I have absolutely had no idea how I got to a design element in something. Like, especially if I'm doing like Ami or something like an amigurumi, I will just kind of, decrease at will and do stuff so I get proper shaping. And then I'll go back and realize I probably should have noted where I put those decreases, because now I have no idea. Right. But depending upon what the project is, I can try to get the pattern ready before the sample is done. And especially I try to get as much tester time as possible too. So if I'm making like a sweater, I will start on the pattern once I get a good solid idea that the sample is good on my end. And then I'll start on the pattern because I want to be able to get it to my testers so they have as much time as possible.
So there, I noticed there's like two kinds of people, basically. There are people who love swatching, who thinks it's a holy grail of like the craft. And then there are people who try to avoid it at any cost. Where do you fall in?
It depends on what I'm working on, because there are definitely times where I'm just like, no, I'm okay. I don't need to worry about that. I always provide the gauge and a swatch for my projects, like when I'm writing patterns. But there's many times where I want to just tell people it's absolutely not necessary. Don't even worry about it. Just try to do your best. I just want to tell them it's okay if it's a little bit big. This is not a sweater.
Right.
It's fine.
Did that ever bite back, that approach of like, don't worry about it?
Definitely in the beginning. It was one of those the learning curves, like talking things that I definitely regret now, where I was just like, it's okay, it's unnecessary, and then people were like, yeah, this is totally weird shape. Like, yeah, I know what I did. Probably should have given you better instructions.
So like talking about people reacting to your patterns, have there ever been like something that made you wanna quit the whole thing? Like, was there ever any negativity like in the response to your patterns or something when you were like, you know what, why am I doing that?
Usually it's very like it's few and far between, and it's usually like an individual one person issue, but I have had some mean emails where people are just huge jerks. Like, for whatever reason, they're having a problem or they're unhappy or whatever. And I've had emails that just rip into me. And I'm just like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, I've just tried to make something pretty and put some happiness out into this world. And this person is like questioning whether or not I'm smart enough to do this. They're telling me the design sucks and they've been, crocheting for 45 years and they've never encountered a pattern this bad and all sorts of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm just floored by that. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does seem to be one of those things that you remember regardless of the frequency.
So how do you get over it? How do you get over that like imposter syndrome that like, oh my God, maybe I'm not qualified to be a designer, maybe I should stop? Like, how do you pull yourself together from like one negative comment of somebody who might have just had a bad day and took it out on you and like continue on your journey?
I don't know. Honestly, I deal with imposter syndrome every day. Every time I release a new pattern and it does well or it doesn't do well, I'm just riddled with thoughts of like, maybe I do kind of suck at this. Maybe I'm not as good. Maybe there are people out there that are better than me. And it's a daily process, really. I've never really figured out a good fix for it. Just trying to work on the next thing and hope that it's going to be better and hope that I'm going to feel more confident about the design. But it's yeah, I'm always plagued with it. I hate it. It's really a rough thing. And a lot of it is probably more self-inflicted than just jerky comments too, where I just like have a moment of, disappointment because the design didn't do as well as it could have, or I thought it would. And then I just kind of, rocked a little bit. My confidence is, takes a hit, and I just have to move on to the next design the best I can.
I mean, it's also like, I think we have like as artists, right? We have a tendency of like, whenever something doesn't perform well or meets our expectations, like you can be super excited about your like particular design and think this is your next masterpiece, and it's like crickets, like nothing, there's no reaction. So we tend to like take it personally that like we are not good. But I feel like a lot of times it's like, it might be like, maybe it's a marketing didn't work, maybe you didn't approach the people who are right for this project, maybe like you're talking to the wrong people and you have to like widen your audience. So it's like, I feel like it's hard not to take the blame on yourself and like think about how to fix it, how to like approach it better the next time. It's like, it's tough.
Oh, absolutely. And especially because everything we make is so personal. Like, because we're making it with our hands. We are creating something with our hands. And, every little bit of labor that goes into it is just all personally generated. And so it is such a individual thing that I absolutely take everything personally. Right. Like, it's all like everything, all my designs hold like little special places. And I I, remember where I was when I made that, and then I'll remember whether or not it did well. And it absolutely is just like me. It's a little part of me when I create something. And so, yeah, when it doesn't do well, you just have to try to go on because you're like, oh, okay, so maybe I didn't do well because it's a little bit of me.
Well, I mean, I have a question for you, like for the general audience, right? I love supporting designers that like I haven't known before, or even somebody who like I never needed their stuff, but like I'm always trying to think, well, how can I support this person without necessarily buying the pattern or buying the yarn from the yarn dyer? Like, is there a way for me to support them, to promote them somehow? And this was like one of the reasons why I started this channel, because like I felt like that was my way of helping my followers to find new artists that they can buy their yarn from or buy their patterns from, things like that, right? Or even get inspired. What would you want your followers, how can they support you if, let's say, they can't afford to buy your pattern that month? How can they support you?
Best way is like what you're doing now, sharing content, talking, commenting on posts on social media, trying to, convince the algorithm that people want to see it, type of thing. That's the best thing, really, is just sharing and engaging with content from people that you want to support.
Right.
Because outside of monetary, contributions, buying a pattern or what have you, best way, like just trying to help get more eyes onto what they're doing is the, yeah, it's just great support.
Right. Well, I also feel like, in sense, like that's exactly what we've been talking about, the whole like self-doubts, all those things, right? If somebody can't buy your pattern, or they for like whatever reason, right, they might not have time to knit it, they might, or crochet it, they might not have money to make it, they might not have the right yarn for it, or it might be like above their difficulty level, but they like you as a designer and they want to support you. Sometimes like just a positive comment can make you feel better and make you feel like people like what you're doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I know when I first started talking about this design before I released it, people were commenting in the comments and tagging their friends and being like, hey, this made me think of you. I absolutely think you're going to love this design. And that was so cool to me. I love that feeling where somebody's like, hey, this is super you.
Right.
You're going to love this. I saw this photo and I was thinking of you. And it's like, I don't know. It's a great feeling. And yeah, that's exactly, just like a nice comment goes so far some days. Like, you have no idea. Some days I've just felt like poo, just terrible. And somebody comment on something or just like post a photo of something they've made, and it just warms me from the inside. I'm just like, oh, now I feel so much better. Thank you. You have no idea how just you going, oh, I made your sweater and I got a compliment on it today, so thank you. I'm just like, oh, you made my sweater? Thank you.
So do you love wearing your own stuff? Like when you go out, is it something you always try to do, to wear stuff you made?
Oh, absolutely. I think for years leading up to last year, when, we all stayed at home a lot, I I made it a habit to wear something crochet almost every time I left the house. That's why I still make a lot of earrings, because it's very easy during the summer. I live in Southern California, so it's hot and there's really not a lot of chance to wear something crochet. So I will make a pair of earrings. I made some mushrooms earlier this year,
I saw
and they
them. I
got
love those so
a
much.
ton of traction. I wore them all season. Yeah, the little mushroom earrings, they're actually really big when you wear them, but they are so cute. And I had random people just walk up to me and be like, are those mushrooms? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, those are cute. I love them. I'm like, well, thank you.
No, I saw those and I was like, oh my God, like those are so cute. Really adorable. Do you sell any of the finished products you make, or is it only patterns?
Just patterns. I dabbled in selling finished items years ago, but I don't think I'm suited to that. It's a lot of work, and having to keep the stock and having to promote it, like, absolutely so much work. And I respect people that can do that, but I cannot. Just,
What happens to like every single thing you crochet? Like, do you gift a lot of things? Do you keep it for like shows? And what do you do with it?
right now, I have about 3 years worth of projects just sitting in a room. They're in those vacuum sealed bags and I just put them off to the side. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. I try to make sure that everything's photographed and looks nice. And then I try to usually donate them or give them away to friends. But I haven't done that in quite a long time. So I have a lot of stuff that's just kind of sitting there. Like for the most part, I like to keep the sweaters because I will totally wear those. But for some of the other stuff, I realize, sometimes I won't end up wearing them, won't end up keeping it around. And so I do try to donate it. And that's about it. Like I do give away and donate as much as I possibly can.
Do you teach? Do you teach people how to crochet?
Mostly just friends. I have a couple friends that I've taught to crochet over the years here and there. One of them, she actually just started working at a craft store. And so she got back into crocheting and she sent me a photo of like her finished scarf. And then she's like working on a blanket and stuff like that. And I'm just like wildly happy for her. Like it's so cool that I was able to teach her and now she's playing around with it and enjoying crochet. But outside of that, I don't really think I'm a great teacher. So
have you ever tried teaching your husband?
I did once and he wasn't into it. And so I was like, that's fine. We'll just move on.
How does he react to, well, I should probably first ask you about your yarn stash. Is there a big yarn stash?
Oh, there's so much yarn. It's just me and the husband. So we do have space in our house. And so I've got a whole office room of all my yarn. And it's so much. There is so much yarn. Last month, our landlord came and did like a little inspection and she walked into the room and she was stopped by it. She was just like, wow. She's like, wow, where did all of this yarn come from? I was like, you pick up yarn. That's kind of what happens. It follows you home from the store. That's how things work.
Well, how do you buy yarn? How do you decide on what you need to buy? And I mean, I use the word need loosely here.
Need is it's a sliding scale of need. I've trying to be more conscious of getting yarn for projects. Like not just buying it because it's pretty or because it's on sale. I've been trying very good to be organized when it comes to stuff like that. I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of brands right now. So I get a lot of yarn support too. That's one of the biggest differences in the last couple of years for me. Just like with social media, the platform, like using it has put me in touch with brands and they do provide me with yarn so that I can work on patterns with their yarn, kind of little back and forth there. I have yarn support. They have patterns they can show off on social media and it works great for everybody. But I still have to, like, again, be very specific and think through and try to plan the best I can, which is kind of hard for me sometimes before I ask them for specific yarns for a project. But yeah, I have a ton of yarn, so I'm trying to be very conscious of using it.
Well, how many projects do you work at the time?
Oh man, as many as I can most of the time. Like I get really bored sometimes. And so I really need to jump from project to project. I'll do a couple rows on something and then I'll do a couple rows on something else. And then I'll, start working on a pattern or something because I get antsy doing the same thing over and over. And I like half double crochet. It's like my favorite stitch. So a lot of my designs tend to use that. But I still have to jump around designs because doing half double crochets all day, even if they're like 4 different designs, can be boring.
Right. Do you have a schedule for the pattern releases, like for some prolonged period of time, or is it more like next month I'm gonna do this?
I definitely have a schedule. I release patterns every Tuesday, 4 Tuesdays a month this year, or this month even. November has 5 Tuesdays, so I was able to take a week off, but I do it 4 Tuesdays a month, and like I have everything else set around that schedule, a release schedule of all of my patterns. I have like my corner to corner squares. I have a year-long crochet along going with them. This year I'm doing plants. And so that is always the last Tuesday of the month. And then I have the other 3, just kind of I decide what's going to work or what I'll just have done to release on that day. But I try to stick to that.
Right. Why do you like, or like, what do you like about crochet alongs?
I like the engagement. Like this one, kind of here and there, especially a year-long crochet along, people will be really interested in it at the beginning of the year. And they're super, like I get a ton for the first couple of squares. There's a ton of people that post pictures and are doing it with me. And then towards October, November, it slows down a lot.
Right.
But then once the whole thing is done and I can show off the finished design, then it picks back up and then I get to see more engagement. And I think it's just fun to watch other people's interpretations as I'm releasing squares, and then they use different colors or they pick a different like color theme, like a backing color or something throughout the year. And I don't know, it's just a lot, it's fun. I like the structure of it. I like having something that I can work within to design. Like I'll do like the square, and then I have to make something within that specific parameters of the square size. And it's just like a little challenge for myself. It's a simple little project, but it's fun.
Right.
And
so when is the next one starting?
The new square for this crochet along will be out at the end of the month. And then I'm going to do another one next year. I haven't decided the theme. I've been doing a blanket once a year with different squares. I just always pick a different theme, and I haven't landed on a theme for 2022 yet. I'm leaning towards like food or dessert or something fun where I can make like really fun, colorful squares, but haven't decided completely.
That sounds yummy. Well, what else are you planning for next year? What's in the works?
Oh, I have nothing planned for next year. Like that's the loosest idea. I'm hoping to get some plans going at some point, probably within the next couple of weeks. I'll start to try to get ideas for releases in January. But oh yeah, anything beyond December is completely in a fog at this point. I have no idea what's going on yet.
Well, I can't wait to see what you're gonna come up with for the next year. And I love seeing your pictures. They like just always make me smile for some reason. So it's like very happy and like uplifting, you know.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. I loved having you on my channel.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This was really a lot of fun.